You'll probably step on it, but you can step on it, push that down, and I reach over the pan. I should have reached under the jaws. When you set these, let me do it like this. You guys will play with this, I'm sure, at the end, but if you're not strong enough with your hands, you can set it with your fingers, like that, and reach under this loose jaw. See what I'm doing? That way, if it goes off, it doesn't catch you. If you have your fingers up here and it went off, it could catch you. So you want to reach underneath this loose jaw. They call this the loose jaw. Okay?
So if it snaps, if it's like halfway up, if it closes, it'll snap shut. Well, it won't get you.
It won't get you if you're underneath this. If you're on top of this up here, it'll catch you. It'll catch you. So you want to put that there, pick the pan up from underneath. See, I'm underneath my fingers?
Yeah.
Because then if it goes off, I don't get caught because my fingers are underneath. See? When you get a little older and a little bigger, you can set these on your knee just by pushing down and hold that side. You can set it like this. You want your pan to set level. You don't want it to be way up in the air like this. You want it to be down sitting level. If it doesn't set level, you might have to bend this in a little bit. If you bend this right here in, you should use the pliers. They make a tool for it, but if you bend that in, it'll actually let the pan set more level. We want a level pan. Let's see, what else? They talked about your swivels. We talked about your trap tag. Got that on. I could have another swivel here, it wouldn't hurt. But one thing I'm going to recommend on that trap they send home with you, if you're going to set this trap in the water, the most important thing is staking it down. It's pretty easy to catch a raccoon in the water in a 1.5, but if you stake it just through this, there's a lot of chance, because the mud doesn't hold the stake very well, they can pull it out pretty easy. Especially if you're along a bank.
We don't have
You always got to remember,
we have possums.
you push this in the mud, and the coon comes up here on the bank, he can pull up on it, and he can pull your stake out. I really recommend, if you're going to trap a coon in the water, or a mink or a muskrat, to add some more chain, because then they're not pulling straight up. If you add more chain, and you can do it with a swivel, you can add right there at the swivel, or you can use what they call an S hook. It's just a hook that's an S shape. You can hook that in the end of your chain to add it. You could hook it here to add more chain. And I recommend adding a couple more feet of chain, or at least a foot more, so that a raccoon can't pull straight up. You might be muskrat trapping, but you got to set and stake things for the biggest animal you might catch. You might put a muskrat set right here and catch a 50-pound beaver. Well, if you think, well, this will hold a muskrat, that would hold a muskrat, but it's not going to hold a 50-pound beaver. He's going to pull it out and take off with your stake and your trap. That's the main thing. I just make sure you stake it really solid. They wanted me to show you a couple different sets. There's a coon trail right here. If you look, you can see where the coons, it's not a really big trail, but you can see where the coon's been going along the edge here. And right here is where they're stepping in the water. They call this a blind set. You're gonna set the trap in the water right where the raccoon's stepping. His next step off the bank is gonna be in your trap. If it's okay, you could stake it out in the water. And like I say, make sure you get that stake in. You could stake it on the bank, up here if you wanted. Either way, your coon's gonna have a big circle all torn up. I don't like to set coon traps anywhere that there's something he can tangle up on. I don't like this, he'll be tangled up out here, wrapped around. I'd either get that out of the way, or I'd move and set down there where he's walking along and stepping in the water. They call it a blind set. Anywhere that an animal's walking, or going to put their feet down in the water is a blind set. You don't use any bait, you don't use any lure. You're just reading the sign. You're reading the footprints of the mink or the coon you're putting a trap. They call it bedding the trap. How many of you watch videos online about trapping? Everybody, most. They talk about bedding a trap. You don't just lay it there because it's too tippy, like Bruce was talking about the cage traps. They call it bedding the trap, and you kind of push it down in the mud. Wiggle and push. Get it pushed down in the mud so it doesn't move if he steps on the side of it. That's very important. You're going to hear that when you go to the dirt guys about bedding the trap. Make sure it doesn't wobble or move. Any questions on any of that? Powder. One of the most popular sets that people make in the water is a pocket set. How many have heard of a pocket set? Not everybody. I'm gonna stake out in the water. Now you want to put your pocket set where the animals are traveling. Since he's stepping in the water there, I could make a pocket set there. They make specialized shovels that are narrow, so you can make a smaller pocket.
Spade.
Or they make tile spades. Most people still have a tile spade. You don't have to go buy a special shovel to make the set. All you're going to do is just dig a hole back in the bank. For the record, that you guys that have trapped, I do not like pockets. They work good. I used them when I was a kid. I used them a lot when I was younger. You're going to dig a hole back in the bank. Try to keep your hole in the bank only about as wide as the trap. Why would I not want to make a big wide hole?
You can get into the bait.
Yep, he's going to steal your bait. Come in and not step on the trap. The deeper you can get it, the better. And I have gloves up there. They sell different trapping gloves. For this, I'm not going to wear them. You don't need them, but they help. They keep your hands from getting all cracked and bleeding. If you do this like Justin does, or some other online people you've watched, or I wear gloves when I'm coon trapping in Iowa day after day, every hour in the water. We're gonna say this one's a mink pocket. Water's gonna be about this deep. We're gonna set the trap in the hole this direction. On short-legged animals like mink and muskrat, you want them to come between the jaws, this direction. On long-legged animals like a coon, doesn't matter so much, he can step over the jaws. The reason they worry about that is a short-legged mink, they think maybe this jaw when it comes up might push him out of your trap. So on a mink pocket, you're gonna take your 1.5, you're gonna put it up in the hole a little ways. You're gonna bed it, push down in the mud. I'm pushing down in the mud now. And then you can take your piece of fish or whatever bait lure you buy, push it up in there and push it in the top of the hole. That's kind of a basic mink pocket. That will catch everything. Mink, muskrat, coon, otter, beaver, they'll catch everything. Speaking of that, again, anytime you anchor in the water, make sure that it's really solidly anchored, because you may catch a great big otter in this and he will pull and pull and pull, and he'll pull your stake if you don't have it in very good. I don't recommend wire. I just don't like anything wired when you're trapping. I would use extra cable and make an extension if you don't have extra chain, which you can rob that off the swing set out and back if you want to. Just swing set chain. You can go buy that at the hardware store. But you could make an extension. You could make an extension just out of cable. Same, you can still go to the hardware store and buy cable, and you can buy these ferrules. They call them ferrules. And you can hit those with a hammer to flatten them and make a loop on each end. Then you can add it to your trap chain to get more length, get them out away from there. Coons now, they like it where it's all shined up. A mink, you want to keep your pocket kind of hidden. If you're trying to just catch a mink and not catch the coons, you'd do this where it was pretty looks natural, like a muskrat dug a hole there. But a coon one, you just shine it all up so he can see it when he's clear over there. You just shine the mud all up. After you catch a couple, you won't have to do this, but you can shine it all up. Grab my trap, see if I can catch me. We're gonna watch? Nope, not looking. On a coon pocket, I would set my trap out here farther, not up in the hole like the mink. I'd set it out here farther. I'd either point the dog towards the hole or the dog away, generally towards. Again, you're gonna bed that trap. Can't get it, stomp you in the mud, get a little place to set that. And then you can put bait out here, lure, or bait up here, lure out here. I don't differentiate too much between bait and lure. Bait, lure, and scent to me are all the same. They're trying to attract an animal to go where you want him to go. Questions on that? Anything?
Do you ever have to worry about scent cover?
Scent cover?
Yeah, like a lot of animals, you know, smell people have been there.
Your dirt guys will talk about that a lot more. Water covers most all your scent. You're in hip boots and, you know, I would be wearing rubber gloves smearing the bank, but a coon don't care. I mean, he lives in your house if he wants to chew in. Most animals aren't scared of people. They will avoid them, but most of them aren't scared of people. Another thing you can do if you have mink tracks coming along here, you can actually make you a shelf to put a trap on. You can just take and cut a straight up and down wall like that and put your trap. This is for mink mostly, but they'll catch coons too. I'm going to put the loose jaw, the one you reached under to set the trap, right up against the wall like that. And that mink's coming along. It'd be nice if there was a big rock or something here where he either has to go up around or he has to come in the water, and then he'll run this edge. The mink hug the edges. If you're setting a bridge, set right up against the edge of the bridge. If you want, you can add some sticks. Got 10 sticks here. Most of them add a stick out here, right by the dog, so you don't have them step right there. I get the stick. I'm like, anyway, that's just a blind set on a shelf. What else? Any questions on that one? They talked about a corn set where you can take and set a trap like this and shove a ear of corn in the bank above it for muskrats. Just imagine that still had corn on it. You could shove it up here, maybe put some muskrat lure on it and have the trap right out here in the water in front of it. It works good if you have muskrats, which I was getting less and less of those. But you got to remember where you're setting it. What do we got right here? We got a nest box. Well, we may have ducks and geese and waterfowl out here. If you put corn on the bank, you're going to catch a duck, a goose, or some kind of waterfowl bird. So this might not be the place to put that set. I wouldn't, just because of that. If you had geese here and you had some goose flopping around, it doesn't look good to any of us. You know, you got to be thinking about where you're setting them. Again, I don't like anything on the bank for them to tangle up on. If this was a bigger tree, bushes don't care, weeds, but if this was actually a tree, I wouldn't like to set. I might stake my stake over here so the coon couldn't reach it. When they get tangled up, they get caught and they get tangled around things, pretty soon the swivel's not working. And if this doesn't swivel, that coon rolls over and rolls over and rolls over. Pretty soon he's going to twist and he's going to break not toes. He's going to break toes or his wrist. I mean, it's just not good on the animal for one, and he may escape for two. Anything else on those things?
Does it actually matter? You know, you said you can stake it down there on the bank. Which is
It's
there
gonna-
an advantage to either?
Well, they talk about a tangle stake. If you wanted to do that, they would stake it in the water, and if you actually put another stake out here, what you're hoping is the muskrat or the beaver or whatever comes out, goes around that stake and tangles up, and then he's drowned. And but if it's flooding, it's starting to rain, they're predicting a bunch of rain, I'd kind of want to stake up. You know, you just have to be really cautious of where you stake all the time. Always think you're going to catch the biggest animal, and you might be setting this on dry ground for a coon, and it's sandy, and you push the stake in with your hand and think, well, that's pretty neat. But what happens when you catch a coyote and he jumps straight up in the air and pulls the whole thing out? You just lost your trap. I think about what I did when I was young. I lost things because they either broke the wire. Like I say, I do not recommend wire. They just, coons roll over, if the swivel's foul, then they just break your wire. And I lost traps when I was a kid, and hopefully you don't do that, because I said don't do that. I mean, there's ways to wire, but just either cable or chain is so much better. It's what the professionals are using. They're not using wire. They're just not. See, by going through that swivel, you have swiveling down there too. You can go around the stake, you can roll over and that swivel turns. I would shove that in the bottom if it was me. I didn't do it for demonstration, but if I was setting this for a coon or a mink, I'd probably bring it up just a little bit farther and stop it in the bottom. But you gotta remember, you got a little chain. If that was a tree in the water and a coon went out or a mink went out and tangled up around there, you may have a hard time getting your mink back out, clear out there, you know. How many have heard of drowners? You watch drowned rigs? Most of you?
I've used them.
Use them?
That's what we ended up using.
Yeah, drowners are good. They didn't
They were great for beavers.
They didn't tell me not to. This is supposed to be really basic, so I'll show a drowner.
Didn't he say we were getting a trap?
This is a cable drowner, there's chain drowner, you've seen all different kinds. So a drowning rig, what they call a drowner or a drowned rig, this slides down this cable. Stake this out in the water. I'm gonna step on it a minute. Stake this up by your pocket set, and you're gonna set this trap at your pocket. When you catch a coon or a mink or a muskrat, they slide down and they can't slide back up. See, when that pulls back up, it won't come back up. So they slide to the bottom and then they drown. A lot of people use that. But all you need is the piece of cable, and you just run it through that swivel that'll be on the 1.5 coil that they give you. Definitely put your extra swivels in. So when they get down there, they're trying to escape and they're gonna roll over, roll over, roll over, roll over. Then you'll have to either pull the bottom of the drowner, or you have to get down so you can reach it and slide it back up. So it'll slide back up that way if you pick up on it. But if you pull on the chain, it won't. That's a lot of people run drowner.
Anybody need water while I'm here?
Thank you.
Do you ever stake with disposables in the water?
I do, but they make bigger ones for water. So these are disposable stakes, they call them. I don't know if you guys that have never done this before. What happens is you push this in the ground. They have a driver. You have to have a driver or a rod. You push it down in the ground, and then when you pull, this thing turns in the ground like that, and then it's really hard to pull out. They call them disposables, because if you cannot pull it out, you can just cut your cable off and leave it in there. This is rock.
I've dug in a rock before.
See, now it's hard to pull that out, like really hard. And I didn't push it in very far. But they make disposables for water that are a lot bigger. They're gonna be like this big. There's 10 different kinds. It's like Ford, Chevy, Dodge. I mean, you can buy Berkshires or Pogos or Iowa disposables or There's a dozen brands of them out there. This is a heavy duty extra large Berkshires. They work fine. Yes, probably if I was going to run this grounder, the softer the bottom is, the bigger you need on the other end, you know. If you're in clay, you don't want to put that in, you're not going to get it out. Any other questions? You guys? No?
When you run grounders, how bad does it kink your cable?
Depends on what you catch, but not too bad generally. You can keep reusing it over and over. Some guys use chain, but then you need a different attachment. This will be a piece of chain instead of cable. Then you need a different slider or drowning lock, they call it. It'll fasten onto this and it'll slide down the chain. One of the nice things about that is your chain can be a little bit loose and it'll still slide pretty well.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like if I did water, what would you suggest be like the best place to like put it?
Where the coons are walking. Look for the tracks. Like I say, there's a coon trail. See this coon trail right here? And they're looking for frogs. See, there's frogs and crawdad holes around here. See this trail right here?
Yeah.
It doesn't show too much, but it's mud right through here. If they were talking about the body grip traps, that would be a good place for a body grip trap also. Or a snare, you could use those. Or your 1.5. When you go to the dry land coon, you can put a dog proof right here. You can put the 1.5 up here on the bank. But the water covers up your scent, like you were asking, and it also covers your trap. You don't need to put anything else over the top of your trap when you're doing that. The water covers it up for you. When it gets to freezing, then you have ice over it and they walk on the ice and you don't catch them. So then you might want to set it, if you're in a creek, you might want to set it where there's some current, where there's ripples going by, so it keeps the water from freezing as easy. Another thing, if you guys get to messing around in the water with hip boots on, always start at the downstream side and walk upstream while you're looking, because then you can see tracks on the bottom. If you walk downstream, the mud from your steps covers up everything you want to see. It also covers up the great big deep hole that you step in and go over your head and get soaking wet in November and freeze. So always turn and walk upstream. This is a pond, so it doesn't really matter, but if the creek was going this way, I'd start here, I'd set this, and then I'd start walking up, and there's another spot where they're stepping off. With raccoons, if you have a lot of traps, you want a gang set. That means set a lot of traps. You might put one there, and a pocket there, and a pocket there, and you'll have 3-4 coons because they run all together, you know.
How close would you actually set them?
So they don't tangle up. If you're running drowners, you don't have to. Just so they don't tangle up. Same with dog proofs, they'll tell you that too. I mean, if you have a dog proof there and a dog, you'll know you got them too close when the coon's got a foot in each dog proof. Because he's reaching out, trying to get away, like Bruce was talking in the cages, and he'll stick his foot in the other dog proof. Now you have him both foot. So you were a little too close, a little bit farther away. You know.
I made that mistake setting a coyote rig that way. Had the double coyote rig. Yeah, came back the next morning. He had one leg in the front and one leg in the back, and I'm like,
There's nothing wrong with that. Just a little bit farther.
Yep.
Try to get doubles. A lot of times when I'm working in the water, if I'm working, I'm going to bait this pocket. Let's say I got some bait on my side and my gloves on. I don't have this trap set yet. I'll drop it over my boot. Then I don't have to reach around trying to find it. It's right on my boot. And then I can bait this and I can get my bottle of lure out and I can put some on a stick and put it here or put it up inside. And then when I'm ready to set my trap, I know right where it's at. It's right there underneath my boot. Or on top of my boot, I mean. Yes?
Is that 1.5?
This is a 1.5. They're going to give you one of these and 2 dog proofs at the end of this.
Ooh.
So,
remember, don't get your a singular finger in it. It's gonna
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah. I'll reach underneath this jaw to set it again. If you step on it, just make sure when you get to here that you reach underneath. You can flip this up even. You can flip it clear over and then reach underneath to pull this up. Then if it goes off, there's no chance to catch your fingers. See, my finger's underneath. Us guys who've done this a million times, we usually just set it from the top and go. But we're comfortable and we've all been caught and it hurts. And you ever watch a trap setting contest where it's 5 traps as fast as you can set, everything is up above, nobody reaches under.
No.
But you see people with bleeding fingers at the end of it all. So, but that will catch anything. Now if I came down here and I got this nice coon trail and they're stepping in the water right there, I'm about ready to set it and I got a great big dog track right there, I'm not going to set it.
Nope.
This will catch somebody's dog just as easy as a coon or a mink or a muskrat. You can let him out of this.
It's a lot harder to let them out.
Yep, you can let him out of this. And even if it's the nicest, friendliest dog, and he's sitting here with this on his foot,
Still probably gonna bite
and you can pat him, don't go down and do the trap unless you get somebody to hold onto his head. Either hold his muzzle, hold his mouth shut, put a coat over it. If you're by yourself, put the coat over his head, and then you do it. Because if you get down here, his head's here and your face is here, and you open this. Remember when your hand's asleep, it tingles, and then when it kind of quits, it tingles. You let that off, and all of a sudden he gets some feeling in his foot, and it hurts. He tries to bite whatever's there, and that's your head right here. So get somebody to hold on to the head, or put a coat over him. I usually just take my coat off and put it over him. I watch really careful so I don't catch them, but if you do catch one, that would be a good way to get rid of them. They make choke poles where you can put it around his neck and hold him down and then take him out with your feet. Now, there's a lot of ways to do it, but just even if he's the friendliest dog in the world, even if it's your dog, just be really careful. Because when you open this, he usually just wants to bite. So don't have your face right down there. Have somebody hold his mouth or somebody put a coat over his head and kind of hold him. And you can let him go real easy. Like I said, the corn set would be a good set on a creek with muskrats, but in a pond that might have ducks and geese, you don't want to do that. You know. You guys got any more questions?
Yeah, I have one more.
Keep going. That's fine.
So the point to put it under the jaw and put it under the pandas, is that whole point just to like set it?
Yes. They'll probably show you up there before it's over. No, that's fine. This is, they told me this is beginning trapping class. You've never seen a trap. You're gonna put your feet on here. I'll do it with my hands, but put your feet on here. And then you're gonna flip this over. And then you wanna reach under. Too hard to explain. Step there and there on the levers. This is the dog. The dog goes over. Now you want to reach under this one. You want to reach under this one to pick the pan up. Then you hold the pan up, and you start letting your feet up. That's how it sets.
10-minute warning, guys. So in 10 minutes, I'll come through with the next group,
Okay.
and we'll shuffle down.
Cool. Yeah, we've been all over the board. We've been all over the board.
Hey guys,